Hi, my name's Leighton Jen. I'm the Director of Development for the American Documentary and Animation Film Festival, or as we like to call it, AmDocs. And today we have a great great filmmaker who's from the Medill program, and her name's Kacie Faith Kress, and she has a movie. And my screen went blank. Can you give me the title of your movie and tell me a little bit about it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's called We Exist, Queer Resistance in Southern Appalachia, and it's about LGBTQ rights and the movement for them in Southern Appalachia specifically, and just kind of how those of us from that area are fighting for our own rights and why we choose to stay in an area that can be kind of hostile for queer people.
And then how did you come across the story? I mean, it's like you just read the title, and I'm just so intrigued just by the title alone. Can you tell me how you came across this as a story and why you elected to do this as this is your student project for Medill, correct?
Yes, yeah. So this is based mostly on my lived experience. I was born and raised in East Tennessee, and obviously like realized at an early age that I am gay, and it can be a very conservative area, very red, and that was really, really uncomfortable growing up, just knowing that this area is like very politically conservative and very religious. And for a long time, I really hated it and I really wanted to leave. Like, I just felt like I didn't belong there. I felt like it was never going to have progress. I felt like wasn't anybody like me. And then as I got older, I just kind of stumbled into this amazing queer community in my area. And I was shocked to find that there are people who are just like me, are Southerners and really kind of rednecks and have like very like the same experience as I do. We're just born and raised there. Like it's not like they moved in from New York or something. And who are like living very out and proud and also doing a lot of work and activism in our area. And there's some fascinating grassroots organizations that are just completely dedicated to progress in Southern Appalachia and to making it somewhere that is safe and joyful for us to stay and to have a community. And so really I knew most of these people through like service sector jobs I had done before grad school and just through like friends of friends, just community, and had been really inspired by them and had joined a lot of organizations and a lot of little community clubs and things because of them. So I wanted to talk to each of them about like what inspired them to stay there and how it feels to be in an area where our community can be very hated and can have a lot of things to fight for. um, and why we love it, why we're not leaving, and why we want to stay.
Can you tell me about, I mean, this there's parts of it, you think about it, sounds like a big fight that you have against the community. Can you tell me what makes it worth the fight for you and for the people you spoke to with?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think part of it is just the natural attachment to like your home. You grow up in an area, and Appalachia particularly is very culturally unique. And it doesn't feel like anywhere else. You leave it and you miss how people talk and you miss the food and you miss the music. And I think part of that is just, you're homesick when you're not there. Like that's who you are. It's always going to be who you are. Um, and so it's part of it is just about the right to stay. Like I don't want to leave. I don't want to be pushed out just because of who I am. I want the option to stay. I want people like me to have the option to stay and not feel like that choice is taken away from them. And then I think like there's something very special about a small activism community existing like as a form of resistance. It feels very, very different than any other queer or political community that I've been a part of. I think other liberal and leftist movements tend to feel less passionate in a lot of ways. I think that's because there is less like, I don't know, like in Chicago, right, where I live now.
Mhm.
Like it's not very hard to be gay in Chicago. It's pretty great. Like there's not a lot to fight about. We have good rights. And I think that makes the community feel a little more like milquetoast and a little more spread out. There's a special kind of bond you have when you are very othered and very much on the fringes of your own home and your own society. And then also like a cultural element, I don't always fit in with like academic queer groups or political queer groups because I was raised more rural, more backwoods, more like country. I like code switch, I talk different. It's just not home. It's not the same. And I'm not the same self with those people. And with my community back home, who's both queer and Appalachian, it's an intersectional identity where like I get to be completely and entirely myself, and so do they.
What kind of inroads do you think your community has made in Appalachia?
Yeah, so the cool thing about it is it actually goes back very far. It's not entirely a new movement. And I didn't know that also because no one talks about it. People talk about Appalachia, they talk about poverty, they talk about coal mining, and they talk about evangelical Christianity. And so I had no idea that there have been these leftist and activistic movements going on for decades. And actually I just randomly one day went antique shopping in like the gay part of town, which is an inroad that we've already made. That's changed in my life. It used to be like the hipster part of town in Knoxville, Tennessee. And then at some point I was like out with one or two gay friends I had, and they're like, oh yeah, like we all go to this area, and like I'm seeing gay flags and like the windows and like just other queer people all around. And I was like, this is crazy. Like we have like our own little like downtown now. So there's a lot of like vintage shops there. And I went into one day before I was moving, and I was wearing like a shirt that says why be racist, sexist, or homophobic or transphobic when you can just be quiet. And this like old like cigarette skinny like white man came up to me, and he was like, hey, what does your shirt say? And I instantly was like so afraid. I was like, oh god, like I'm gonna get in trouble. Like I was alone. I was like, oh fuck. And he like kind of turned me around and he read it, and then he was like, oh, I love that. Oh, I love that. And instantly I was like, oh, thank God, like he's gay. um, and he started talking to me about how he was part of the original Pride movement in our town in like the 70s and 80s.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was like, I had no idea. It started way back then, and like if I hadn't just stumbled into this random old man, I wouldn't have known that. Um, yeah, it's like it's been going on, and we have a lot of organizations specifically in Knoxville now. We have a Planned Parenthood. It did get burned down by um some
Well,
conservative, I believe it is rebuilt now.
okay.
But we have that. We have Knox Pride, and then there's bigger Appalachian grassroots organizations that aren't just for queer rights. My personal favorite is the Stay Project Appalachia,
Hmm.
um, based about 2 hours from Knoxville, in the Smokies, and it is specifically geared towards gay rights, gender equality, and racial equality, and just like economic equality in Appalachia, because we're seeing a mass exodus of young people leaving because there's just not jobs. We just
Hmm.
can't afford to live there, especially because people tend to move into the area from more wealthy areas because the housing is cheap to them,
Right.
and yeah, or the land is cheap. But yeah, so that organization is just geared at progressive movements and at providing community for young people, and specifically like queer young people and everything like that. Knox Pride is similar, does a lot of things with, we see that one is mostly for political movements. So like Tennessee recently had the drag ban. I don't know if you've heard about that.
I don't think I missed that one.
Yeah, so they wanted to ban drag shows from any public space where there could be children and like anywhere around. I guess basically they were trying to have drag be treated like porn, and it's not good. Um and then there was another bill that was attempted to be passed that would have made it even harder to access gender affirming care than it already is. And so Knox Pride and organizations like that will work to like have that not happen. Yeah. Yeah, but like it wasn't just Knox Pride, but organizations like that will raise awareness amongst the community, and a lot of like voter registration, things like that, that help those kinds of bills get knocked down and help us get more progressive like members in our politics, which actually Knoxville has been great about. We have an openly socialist councilwoman, I believe. Yeah, and like a shockingly diverse city council for like a little town dropped in East Tennessee. Um, so we've done pretty good, I think. Yeah, mostly things like that.
Funny you talk about the drag. That's a big part of our economy out here in Palm Springs. We have a lot of drag events over the weekends, so you won't be able to you'll be able to catch a lot of them while you're here. Um,
Yeah.
let's go to the journalism part of this because I was a journalist too, and I've been bedazzled. I've been dazzled by what Medill brings. For you, what kind of journalism did you want to be, and how does with this your documentary does that change anything?
Yeah, so actually, I came into Medill. I'm in their social justice focused journalism program,
Okay.
graduate. And I came into Medill specifically with the idea that I wanted to pursue social justice issues in Appalachia because it gets completely overlooked a lot of the time.
Mhm.
And so things like immigration, LGBTQ rights, the opioid crisis, everything like that, it's very unique and functions very differently in my area, and I specifically wanted to pursue that. So really, this has been the first time at Medill, because obviously I'm in Chicago, that I've gotten to pursue something specifically related to what I want to do in my career one day, which is really cool. I jumped at the chance for that, obviously, and
Right.
yeah, so it didn't really change anything. I think it more affirmed what I went into journalism intending to do. And for me, I like to focus on, I think journalism can be a little remote from its subjects at times it can be too objective, too far away.
Mhm.
And also, like, I'm just not a fan of parachute journalism and ivory tower journalism and all that. Like,
Mhm.
that happens a lot to Appalachia. And like, I've been surprised in my experiences, even when like we have big name journalists come to talk to us, and they'll talk about how they did a story on Appalachia.
Ugh.
Yeah, and I'll be like, well, I guess you didn't talk to anybody because they're not going to say that. Uh, yeah, so for me, it was more about getting the chance to do that, and no, and having a really cool opportunity in that I knew all of my subjects previously, and so I knew I could get very intimate and honest stories. I knew they'd be comfortable with me,
Mhm.
which is what I wanted. I didn't want people doing what I do in academic environments and trying to modulate themselves and use correct grammar and be palatable, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
It gives it an authentic feel.
Yeah.
Um, so when you came into Medill, were you thinking print, multimedia, broadcast,
Yeah,
and
so
then
that is actually something that this project did change for me, is I was thinking exclusively print. I come from a background in creative writing, and academic writing, and I've, been sitting and typing at a laptop for many years. And uh they just, I had to take video journalism as like an intro thing, and I never held this like fancy camera before. I didn't even know how to turn it on. And like, I didn't expect to do projects like this over video at all. I just had to for school, and then I enjoyed it so much, and I really appreciated just getting the chance to let people speak for themselves, and people getting to know them in a different way. I can write what people say, and that's great, and hopefully I do an okay job at that. But it's different to see someone and listen to them and to really kind of emotionally respond to that. And that's definitely made me consider doing more multimedia and video work in my career.
documentaries? I mean, is that do you think that's going to be a career path for you as well?
Maybe, I don't know yet. I'm trying to keep the doors open.
And this is this going to be your first film festival then?
Yes.
Oh wow! You never know. You might get that big deal, and maybe everything will change. Um, from doing this documentary, what do you think the role is of documentaries in journalism now? Because obviously, it's a changing landscape. Sadly, a lot of people are losing jobs, and what we know is journalism is changing rapidly because of the decline.
Yeah.
But what do you think about where documentaries? What it seems like a different route, and it can feed into different segments. What do you think about the future of journalism, and where does documentaries fit into that?
That's an interesting question. I think with like social media and our changing like technological landscape, there's a lot of new opportunities, even though those are also kind of pushing out some of the older mediums. I think about like short form documentaries, like extremely short form on like TikTok and things like that. And I do think that could reach a wider audience and a lot younger of an audience than traditional forms of journalism. I'm not sure how I feel about it from like an artistic standpoint, but things like that definitely I think could happen. I think the access that we have nowadays is really good. YouTube journalism, that kind of thing, like it doesn't make money the same way, which is hard for those of us producing the work, but it's also nice to know that like everyday people can access more content and not be hit with paywalls like when you try to read the New York Times, you know?
Mhm.
And I do think that a lack of accessibility is part of why traditional journalism is declining at this moment. It's just not working for the average American anymore. We can't have all the subscriptions that we have to everything all the time.
Right.
And yeah, and it creates, I think, an elitist feel too. It's hard to read about how my generation can't afford housing when I'm paying like $10 a month to like the Washington Post or something. You know,
Right.
it's like, okay, so when what are we gonna do about it? Um, yeah, I don't know. I honestly haven't thought much about the documentary film world in journalism. This is completely new to me,
Mhm.
but I'm hopeful that like we'll see new things being created, even if there's less jobs for the older, maybe longer form styles.
Well, I think that's going to cover it for right now. We're excited to have you come out here and to screen your film. I think we'll have a big audience for your film because we have a large LGBT community, and I think you're going to really educate and open a lot of eyes with your film. I mean, you educated and opened my eyes here just now, just us talking about it. So I can't wait to watch it. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we go?
I don't think so. I think you covered it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, and we will see you AmDocs March 21st to 25th at the Palm Springs Cultural Center in the old Camelot Theater. And we announced earlier today, Sean Penn will be your opening night special guest. So get your tickets quick; they're going to go fast. Thank you very much, and thank you. We'll look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you so much.